What's up people, I'm Ranch, you're watching Radiax. Today we'll be watching yet another new Rockstars video. It's going to be the episode 5 breakdown. If you have not seen my reaction for episode 5, you can go ahead and check that out on my channel. There'll be a link in the description to the original video that I'm about to react to, and you can head over there, you can subscribe to new Rockstars, you can vote their video up, and I'm sure they'll really appreciate it. Alright, let's watch it.
Back to New Rockstars, I'm Eric Boss, and this is a breakdown of Moon Knight Episode 5, which confirmed my underworld theory, but damn, you hate to be right if it means death by sand.
Yeah.
Let's break down this heartbreaking and mind-blowing episode shot by shot for all the details at Cave, as we hear Mark's brother Randall shouting. Now, Randall is the name of Mark's brother in the comics, goes on to carry the monikers of Hatchet Man and Shadow Knight, but not here. Then Mark's mother snaps at him.
It's all your fault!
And don't forget Uncle Frank.
Look what you did, you little jerk.
Now, multiple shots earlier this season focused on close-ups of dry sand. Of course, foreshadowing the sands they would return to this season, but now in this episode, Steven's corporeal fate. And since those sand dunes are depicted as ocean waves that the boat passes through, the drowning of Randall foreshadows the drowning of Mark's second brother that
Oh, that's dark.
Then we cut to this goddess of motherhood screaming, which was directly from Mark's screaming mother, from the mother Mark feared, to a physically fearsome mother that actually ends up being the nurturing mother that they really need. Then to Harrow, because this altar in this scene seems way more tense and way more confused whenever Harrow calls him.
I pointed that out.
Oscar Isaac is definitely making different vocal choices here.
You're not a doctor.
They must pay you a lot of money in this place. You're really good.
They must pay you a lot of money in this place. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah, that was weird.
Low angle point of view of that mom just before she was going to hit him, which might mean that in addition to creating the altar of Stephen Grant on that day, they also might have created the altar of Jake Lockley in that moment to actually take the abuse, which might have led to Jake's extreme violence. So in total, Jake to take the punches, Stephen to think he had a loving mom, and Mark to live with the guilt of it all. So within the subjective afterlife aboard this ship, Mark's organizing principle also created this inner office to represent his self-doubt. So it may be Jake in here, and either way, Jake is left in this psych ward, meaning he still has a chance to reconnect with Khonshu to rescue the others. Then again, in the next scene, Mark retains what Harrow said about organizing principles, so it's not totally clear.
Is a pendulum swinging between a very difficult reality that you are my patient here at Putnam Medical Facility in Chicago, Illinois.
Yeah, that was like exposition level 100.
Fantasy that you've created on your own.
Yes, again, the image of the brain swinging like a pendulum, sense, nonsense, parallels the scales of justice, and the way Harrow's staff and the lanterns all swing back and forth. Also, Putnam psychic.
By the way, wasn't the lamp swing just a clue to the fact that they're on a boat? I thought that was that, but I guess there's some deeper meaning.
Hospital is a facility in the Jeff Lemire comics where Mark's father Elias interns him after Mark witnessed a Nazi serial killer posing as a rabbi, witnessing this murder being the traumatic event that causes DID. So as hard as it was to watch the child abuse in this episode, definitely not as dark as that would have been. A clock appears on the back wall, just like the one in the rec room, hands also made of Khonshu's staff shape with a crescent moon tip. And like that one, this clock also does not actually move, but the ticking is still going and is now
That's just a clue that it's all fake, right?
edits the shot to a new frame.
All right, you're doing everything and everything possible not to look within.
And again, my favorite set detail about this is that this set in the office is the same attic set from Harrow's
Oh, wow.
In that moment,
I thought that was just his apartment, but that's the Harrow's attic place, which makes a lot of sense because this is Harrow's office. And like Steven said, this part was Harrow's man cave, so that makes a lot more sense than my thought that it was the apartment. I thought it was the apartment because of the brick texture, but I guess I'm wrong.
even said to Layla,
"Oh my god.
Yeah.
I'm going to die in an evil magician's man cave."
ah yes, cave. I think they reused that set and that same fear of death and the cave trigger to decorate this representation of the altar's fear within the duat. And by the way, I love all the visual details that went into Tuaret. Her ears constantly wiggling, especially when she's a little nervous. Her blue fingernail polish, which is the same color as the paint on her chest scarab. And then this is awesome. In the corner mirror that is always behind her, the VFX artist always added her reflection, even showing her back when she turns. Such
But right there, I did notice that they had Mark's reflection, but they didn't have Steven's. I know why, because Oscar Isaac can only play one role at a time and they edit it together in post. I know that, but normally Marvel does that. They didn't do it here.
Great attention to detail here. Now she says,
It's been a minute since we've had a soul pass through here.
which is a nod to that rift between gods and man when humans stopped believing in the Egyptian gods, and so naturally fewer people's souls over the millennia would see their afterlife as this Egyptian duat. In addition to the fun animation, I just love the characterization of this hippopotamus brought to life by Antonia Salib.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Aha! Okay. Here we go.
This is the afterlife. The afterlife?
An afterlife, not the afterlife.
Right here. In the back, you can see that there's no reflection for Mark. You guys will probably see it on your screen right now, but then like there's no reflection for Mark over there. That's weird. Marvel normally does something like that. I don't know why they didn't.
How many intersectional planes
Guess they missed
of
it.
untethered consciousness exist?
Yeah.
Like the ancestral plane. Oh, just gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yes, as I interpreted, this hospital is the subjective underworld of the MCU,
Yeah.
in this case called the Duat, much like the way T'Challa and Killmonger's perceptions of the ancestral plane took the forms of an African savannah or an Oakland apartment. And this also suggests that there are countless MCU afterlives that all take various forms.
Right.
One of them was likely the Soul Stone way station that Thanos was transported to. I'm going to talk about this a lot more in future videos, because despite claiming not to connect too much to the MCU, Moon Knight just contributed more MCU world building than anything we saw in Hawkeye
Right.
and Falcon the Winter Soldier. Now also, those lamps tilting the hallway last episode to the sounds of a creaky hull were indeed a sign that this is
Yeah.
all aboard a vessel, as we have been speculating ever since we saw that sunken boat in Gus's fish tank. And of course, how Egyptian mythology depicts the underworld passage using similar boat imagery. I love how the sky of this underworld is purple, also reminiscent of the ancestral plane
Right.
when T'Challa first enters it. Frozen in the sand are past guilty souls, also kind of reminding us of the scattered, pruned figures of the void. The bow of this boat has a Tuaret statue, and a smaller one is aboard the rudder. Tuaret and Stephen
Cool.
explain that they are headed toward the Aru, the field of reeds, the heavenly paradise from Egyptian mythology, only accessible if their heart's weight balances with the feather of truth. Tuaret pulls their hearts from their chests, another Indiana Jones reference, by the way, Temple of Doom there.
Right.
But their hearts are white stone, maybe because Disney Plus does not want a bloody pulsing organ, but
Yeah.
also reflects how Khonshu is currently encased in stone Ushapti form. But these scales are held by Anubis, who in Egyptian mythology is the true purveyor of justice, standing before Ammit, unlike Harrow's scales tattoo, which shows Ammit's croc heads holding the scales. Mark suggests to kill the hippo, steal the boat,
Yeah.
but they head back and
Bad idea.
balance their souls, each room now containing a dark memory from their past. Kind of like the memory elevator of Inception, but also a lot like in WandaVision, another series that spends its penultimate episode going down memory
Yeah,
lane.
I
You
did
see the
say
museum
that.
bathroom from episode 1, and across the hall from that, Steven's memory of rewinding the stars in episode 3 with Khonshu, that room labeled treatment room, this being the traumatic moment they lost Khonshu. But the third room is actually labeled with the QR code for the floor map, and when you scan this, it actually takes you to the comic issue of Moon Knight #1 of 1980, the first solo issue of the Moon Knight character, showing his origin story with Bushman. Literally, the floor map of this hospital is Mark's origin story.
Wow.
Mark brushes off the memory of him standing on that street outside his mother Shiva, but Steven knows only their darkest, most unresolved moments are being kept here. And in the cafeteria are Mark's victims from his time as Khonshu's avatar, all of their canopic jars on the tables in front of them.
They were criminals, murderers, predators, the worst of the worst.
Steven follows Roro to the memory of the barbecue with her mother Wendy and their father.
Right.
Check out my drawing. He drew the fish with only one fin.
Mark, be nice to your little brother.
Yeah, I love the blocking with Oscar Isaac and Carlos Sanchez, who plays young Mark. Incredible performances from both of them this episode.
Right.
They both turn to look back at the mom and then back at their brother, synced. Randall's drawing of the fish, of course, reflects Gus's Nemo fin, and the way poor Randall will end up unable to swim, similar
Oh,
to
yeah,
how Gus
that's dark.
perished outside of Steven's memory as Steven woke up to him just replaced. Young Mark says,
Later, skaters. A wild crocodile.
showing the origin of Steven's sign-off with his
Right.
mom. He always said that to her, but never heard her loving response. And of course sets up Mark's showdown with the croc mouth of Ammit. Mark and Randall venture into a cave, and Steven follows, stepping on Khonshu-looking bird bones. That could explain why Khonshu takes a skeletal form in Mark's eyes, when in Egyptology, Khonshu has a living bird head. The brothers say,
I'll be Russell, though. Can you hear that, Dr. Grant? I sure do, Russell. Sounds to me like danger.
Yes, Rosser is the name of Dr. Grant's young sidekick, Tombbuster being a movie that these brothers must have watched together, and Roro being his nickname probably came from Rosser. And him doing the British accent is likely what inspired Mark to start doing that voice to escape his mom. As Steven pushes into the flooding cave, the sounds of water also play over the shots of Mark in the sidecar. But we never see the boys inside of the cave, and we never see young Mark escaping it. Yes, there are lots of rules about filming child actors in water. It's generally not a safe thing to do. But you can also interpret this metaphorically. Mark entered Plato's allegory of the cave and never came back out. He never reached true enlightenment. He just remained chained up in that cave, only able to perceive reality as deceptive shadows on the wall. The staircase that Steven goes up has actually been seen in the closing credits to every episode, and now we know why. Birthday after birthday, it's a powerful representation of the torment that his mother put him through. We start with Elias and Mark blowing out the candles together, but framed behind them in the middle is that wet bar with the decanter of booze. Now Steven goes up again, but just finds himself back on that same floor. Impossible to escape the cycle of abuse. And now on this birthday, the decanter is in Wendy's hand. Hey, pro tip, if someone is walking around with a glass of booze in one hand and the full bottle in the other, just waiting to refill it, there is a problem. Mark and Steven tumble on to the dig site incident.
Going AWOL in a fugue state gets you discharged from the military. Didn't have a ton of options after that, so I went work for hire for my old CO Bushman.
Yes, referring to Raoul Bushman, Mark's mercenary partner in the comics turned villain, responsible for the death of Marlene's archaeologist father, or in this case, Layla's father. Mark recounts how he tried to help this dig team escape, but ended up getting shot himself and had to crawl into the tomb of Khonshu. Now notice how the moon overhead is now in its waning crescent phase, the crescent shape meaning Khonshu's power is rising. To see this same phase of the lunar cycle in the episode 5 credits, which have been changing episode to episode. So Mark nearly offs himself here, as we saw Jake try to do earlier with that paperweight, but Khonshu stops him.
What a waste.
Yeah, that was an epic voice that he has.
You can actually interpret everything that happened in Mark's life after this point as the judgment journey of a man within the moment of his suicide. Which, by the way, my hot take for Liam Neeson in The Gray. Think about it. Khonshu says,
Your mind, I feel fractured, broken, most fascinating.
Epic scene.
Are a worthy candidate to serve me during this time.
Yes, so Khonshu didn't possess Mark in spite of his DID, but actually preys on him because of it. And there's a really quick subtle shot here. As Mark first drifts closer to death, he looks up at the statue and briefly we see Khonshu's actual hand and staff before that statue. Just a way of showing how Mark is already beginning to allow that deity into his heart. And Mark consents.
Then rise. Rise and live again. As my fist of vengeance, as my Moon Knight.
Yes, the first and so far only time Moon Knight has been spoken on this show. Another parallel to WandaVision episode 8, which ended with Agatha saying Wanda's superhero moniker for the first time in the MCU.
But that makes you Scarlet Witch.
And I like how various colors flicker across Mark's face during this transformation, showing the supernatural power inhabiting his flesh, as well as giving him this cool suit. Back on the deck, baboons scatter. Now, baboons actually play an important role during the duat process, carrying out Thoth's duties as the god of measurement as the heart is weighed on the scales. Baboons also guard the gate of the underworld. To where it says,
Fear is spreading in the upper world. Unbalanced souls are being judged and condemned to the sands before their time. Oh, this is bad.
Yeah, that's because Harrow was doing it, right?
Plummet into the sand at an alarming rate, meaning Harrow must have freed Amit from her Ushapti and is now wreaking havoc on the world. I cannot wait to see this judgment process upstairs, because Amit is depicted as a ferocious, croc-headed beast with the front half of a lion, the back half of a hippo. Tawara and Khonshu are about 10 feet tall, but could Amit be like a freaking bus-sized monster pouncing through the streets of Cairo, eating anyone who serves evil?
That would be awesome to see.
A process that opens up purple underworld portals beneath the feet of rotten egg souls like Veruca Salt. Is that what that poster behind Teenage Mark was referring to? Whatever it is, it's gonna be wild.
Yeah,
They're
definitely.
able to convince Tawara to steer them back toward Osiris's gate. And Steven snaps at Mark.
If Layla dies, that's on your head. It'll be all your fault.
No, you can't! I won't do it! I won't do it! You can't make me!
Yes,
Yeah.
Steven accidentally speaks Wendy's torment words, and Mark finds himself back in Harrow's office. His face no longer injured, just even more evidence that the alter
That was
in the first
different,
scene of this
yeah.
episode was not Mark or Steven. And we return to the awful day. It begins with a close-up on the table as Mark swipes the action figures of Dr. Stephen Grant and Rosser. But really, would these, like the Tombbuster poster, truly exist as merch?
I just wanted to point out that every time I see this poster for Tombbuster and I see the actual guy, Dr. Stephen Grant, I always think it's Ethan Hawke who's playing it every single time. They just look too similar for me, I guess.
The MCU for a little scene knockoff direct-to-VHS movie? Also, considering this is the same universe of actually real IP as Ned Flanders and The Simpsons, Finding Nemo, and both Avatars. Not to mention, on the other wall of this room is the movie poster for the 1977 Star Wars. Also on Mark's side table are a pair of nunchucks and a wooden scale, showing how even in this memory, Mark and Steven's souls are still being judged. And behind Mark, on the other side of that room, is a Chicago Cubs banner, as well as Randall's fish drawing, when we clearly saw Randall finishing coloring in the fin as orange on the day of his death. And we see the moment that young Mark first creates the Steven altar.
Bloody hell. Look at the state of this place. Better sort it out before Mum sees it.
And folks, according to clinical research, this is how DID manifests in patients. Often a traumatic childhood memory. In this case, we learned that it was Mark willing into existence an alter who did not have to have this abusive woman as his mother and might instead have a mother that actually loves him. Steven notices the Tombbuster poster tagline, when danger is near, and Stephen Grant has no fear. Also in that poster, you can see the split bust of the Aztec moon deity Coyolxauhqui, now side-eyeing them. But the poster credits are filled with Easter eggs. Timely Atlas Studios, Timely Atlas being the original name of Marvel Comics. Doug Perlin is a merging of the Moon Knight creators Doug Moench and Don Perlin. Melissa Russell is the wife of writer Jeremy Slater. Dylan Beck is the assistant production coordinator on the show. Wyatt and Dylan Curtis, probably related to the producer Grant Curtis. Colleen Strzelowitz is the wife of Nick Pepin, whose own name cameoed back in episode 2. Carmel Benson is probably related to director Justin Benson. Amy Stewart is a partner to director Aaron Moorhead. Nor Iqbal Molvi is married to the writer Sabir Pirzada. And I assume the other names are just loved ones for other staff and crew. Wendy moves in to abuse her son. But again, this must not have been Steven at the moment of the abuse, otherwise he would have remembered it. So I truly do think that the alter present for all those beatings really could have been Jake. Steven returns to Harrow's office, where he sees Harrow's diploma. This thing just says graduate diploma in psychology, no university listed, no signature, only that he graduated in December 13, 2011. Yeah, it's a fake. Steven makes another pop culture reference.
It's so strange. Little haircut, little silly tash there. It's very Ned Flanders.
Yeah, the visual totally tracks, but also Ned Flanders is known as Springfield's dogmatically faithful true believer, as Harrow is for Amit. Oakley neighboring. Harrow arranges to call Steven's mom.
Hey, Dylan. Yeah, could you call Mrs. Grant, please?
Yes, Dylan is the name of Steven's tour guide date, now coming back here as a receptionist at this facility. But Steven doesn't want the call to go through because he knows that there will be no one at the other end of that call, just as there wasn't for any of his calls, just the dial tone. Now, no call was actually made here, of course. This was just Steven finally facing his own truth. At Wendy Spector's Shiva, Mark stands outside in front of the Watterson Food and Liquor, a nod to executive producer Trevor Watterson. Mark walks off and collapses, smacking his yarmulke, but then cradles it.
The music was really haunting in this one.
Yes, this violent act makes him see his yarmulke as his brother that he still feels guilt for harming. And for a second, it seems like he's looking directly into Steven's eyes, but he's actually reverting into his Steven alter.
Hey, Mum. Hey, you all right? Yeah, would you believe it? I'm totally lost again. I don't know where I am.
If you look closely, his phone screen shows that he is not actually on a call. Mark confirms this happened 2 months prior, and his mom's death in Shiva was that inciting incident behind his recent struggle to keep Steven at bay. Steven helps Mark start to forgive himself.
It wasn't your fault.
And upon this, we return to another upside-down overhead shot, matching Steven entering the museum in episode 2, as they join Tawaret back on the deck as they approach the gates of Osiris. But the scales still have not balanced, so Mark's past victims crawl up from the sand. Mark punches one of their faces off, but he's still pushing back, even faceless. Steven grabs the rudder to knock them off their balance, then hits them with that bat.
Yeah, that was awesome.
I prefer cricket.
Yeah, 6 is what he scored in cricket, but really just as Steven did as a kid with those spilled pencils, it's left to Steven to clean up Mark's messes. Duat, Bing Bong style, all foreshadowed by that goddamn kid.
I hate that kid.
Getting rejected from the field of reeds.
Well, that don't make sense, because I'm not dead, am I?
That's
Stevie.
And so
burns.
Steven turns into a sand sculpture, his last word being Mark, and his hand reaching out in the same gesture and pose that Crawley freezes himself in. I truly hope that Steven isn't gone forever. Like if the Ennead or any higher power rules that Amit's premature condemnation of all those reigning souls was unjust, it's totally possible that Steven could be part of a divine retraction and could definitely rejoin his altars in the living world. And again, I believe that Jake Lockley is still in that psych ward, and if Tuaret can make her case to Osiris, the best warrior of these three altars can take Harrow and Amit to the mat. But whether by tragic coincidence or because Mark no longer needs his Steven altar to escape his trauma, those scales now finally balance, and Mark is moved to the Aru. It's an immediate and smooth transition, as if
It was awesome, but it was like really sad because Steven is just dead.
Now earlier, Tuaret likened the underworld to the ancestral plane, and this field of reeds definitely resembles a paradise where T'Challa's ancestors beckon him to join them, but with the sunlight and the tall plants, it also evokes the garden, Thanos' pastoral retirement. But ultimately for Mark, this is not a paradise, it is hell, because he knows he does not belong here. The music we hear is Más Allá del Sol, sung by Manuel Bonilla and Santiago Stevenson, a Spanish hymn sung at funerals in Mexico and throughout Latin America.
Wow, I did not know that.
Ancestry, but the lyrics translate to beyond the sun, I have a home, beautiful home, meant to convey how in your present life you might be poor and lost, but in heaven, paradise awaits. Unfortunately for Mark, it is not the sun that he connects with, it's the moon. Actually, just as the opening shot of this episode cuts
this is
from something
awesome.
Mark feared to something he wanted, an abusive mother to an understanding mother, the closing shot now cuts the same way. From the sunny field of reeds, something he doesn't want, to the closing title card, that same field of reeds, but with the correct crescent moon shape overseeing it all. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at EA.
Wow, that was an awesome breakdown. I just want to say that, and I really appreciate that Eric was pointing out these great details. I love watching his breakdowns because after we saw like his episode 2, 3, and 4 breakdowns, he made a lot of theories, and all of them turned right in episode 5. I really appreciated it. It like means a lot to know all this stuff beforehand. It makes me even more excited for the episode to come. But anyways, thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like the video to let YouTube know that I'm doing a good job. And please subscribe to the channel. Get me to 100 subscribers. We're almost halfway there. If I get 100 subscribers, I'd really appreciate it. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.